All right. I got here nice and early before the humidity starts. 7 a.m., one of my favorite times of the day. Love it nice and early, very peaceful, very quiet. Can Sometimes you feel like you're the only person alive. But what I wanted to talk about today was dealing with feelings of guilt and regret. I've dealt with a lot of this in the past. This is probably one of the reasons that I got into this kind of work, this sort of healing work, the letting go technique, and just sort of everything I talk about on here. For whatever reason, due to my upbringing, I've dealt a lot with trying to dealing with a lot of feelings of the past, a lot of feelings of the past sort of weighing me down, a lot of emotions, regret, guilt, shame, which I guess can be translated as depression. That's really what depression is when your mind is very stuck in the past, wishing things could have been different, ruminating a lot on the past, obsessing over it. A lot of people probably deal with this, but some people might deal more with anxiety and worrying about the future. It just depends on your genetic makeup, your upbringing. I think if you were made to feel very guilty as a child, maybe somebody was always telling you were doing things wrong and belittled you a lot and that kind of thing, you might suffer from this feeling of a lot of guilt and living in the past. But the main thing that it's important to remember that this is it's your ego's way of keeping you trapped. Your mind. It's your mind's way of really wanting to keep you trapped. Because the mind it really tries to avoid facing reality. This is why meditation is so difficult. It avoids wanting to just sit in peace in the present moment. And I think it really likes to latch on to the past. It likes to constantly revisit things. It likes to try to think that it can change things. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not going to talk about this too much. I'm going to tell you right now a very interesting insight that I learned from he used to be one of my favorite YouTubers, Aaron Abke. I don't watch him much anymore. I guess I just kind of grew out of him. But he had this one video, and I'll never forget it. And it very rarely does just watching one YouTube video like change my whole perspective on something. But this one did. And I don't remember the whole, I remember the bulk of it. Like I remember the main point that he made in it. And just understand that whenever you're feeling guilt, whenever you're like, oh, I should have did this when I was dating that person, or I should have did this when I was in this situation, whatever the thing is, if you feel like you did something wrong, if you feel guilty about something, if you feel like you regret something or some sort of cringy moment from the past, maybe some sort of embarrassing mistake, understand that in that moment, you were doing exactly what you intuitively thought was the right thing to do. And to try to beat yourself up over that is just insanity. I mean, it's just insanity. There is nothing you can do to change the things that you did in the past, especially since when you did them, you probably weren't intentionally doing anything wrong. You were just listening to your intuition. You were probably just doing what made the most sense at the time. And even if you didn't, you were working with whatever you had in that point of time. And it was completely necessary for you to do that thing, even if it was a mistake, even if you hurt somebody, no matter what it was necessary for you to do that thing. So now you can look back and realize that is not how you should handle a situation like that. That is not something you want to do. It didn't make you feel good. It didn't make you feel happy, I guess. Remember, a child has to fall down in order to learn to pick themselves up. They have to put maybe their hand on a stove and get burned to realize that that's not what they're supposed to do. It's very important that you understand that this is what life is all about. It's all about failing. It's all about making mistakes. And some of us aren't good at, dealing with those mistakes. And like I said, we're more sensitive to the things we've done wrong in the past. It haunts us a little bit more maybe than some other people. But what I do every time that this comes up for me is, first of all, for me, it's very emotional. I guess I get like a feeling in my body, like a very uncomfortable feeling of like regret and shame. And like I always say, that's the part you have to deal with. It's not so much the thought about the situation, it's the feeling that it brings that weighs you down. If I think about some situation from the past where I sat in my room and did nothing, that doesn't bother me. But the reason that I think of certain situations and they make me feel a certain way is because there is emotions attached to them, and those emotions are what is the problem, you can say. So whenever this happens, I don't get too stuck in my head about it. I don't, or I try not to. I did for a very long time. But what I do instead is I just immediately relax my body and I just let it all go. I realize that there's some pain there, there's some shame, there's some regret, guilt. I just relax my body and I let that feeling be there for a minute or two without letting my mind get too stuck in the story. Because if you keep thinking about it, the feeling's just going to come and come. Put your attention, your awareness onto your physical body of what you're actually feeling. And you'll know what I'm talking about when this happens next. You'll feel it. It's like in your chest or it's in your stomach. It makes you feel cringe, I guess is a good way to put it. But when you do this, and you might have to do this a lot, when you could let the feeling go, just breathe and just let the feeling be there. It's just a feeling. It can't hurt you at all. It feels very scary. It feels like it can, but it can't hurt you in any way. Let that feeling just go. Sit with it a minute, 2 minutes, whatever. And do this a couple of times. It might take some time, and then you'll see. You'll start thinking about the thing again, whatever it is, and it won't bother you as much anymore. It might not. And maybe this won't work for everybody. I think it will. I'm pretty confident it does. But when you learn to do this properly, it definitely does. You have to understand the reason there are no problems in your head. There's no problems in your mind about the past. They've caused a bit of an emotion in you, and that emotion is stuck. It's stuck in your body, and you have to feel it. So this is why when you go through some sort of traumatic experience, that whatever you went through stays in your body, and it also creates a story as well. And whenever that story comes up, the emotion comes up, or sometimes the emotion might come up because something that's happening now in the present moment might remind you of that same feeling. It might give you a very familiar feeling. And then the emotion will sort of arise with it, and the story will arise with it. The emotion and the story, they're kind of like, they're very interconnected, and they're kind of like one and the same. They connect with each other. So when you can either completely stop thinking about the story, stop thinking about the past, which is very hard, then the emotion will go away. But when you can feel the emotion, which I think is a better solution, when you can feel the emotion and let go of the emotion, the story kind of goes away with it as well. And this might vary. This is my own experience. This is the information I've gotten from the books like Letting Go and so forth. This has been the experience of other people's too, but I can't give any, I can't say this will necessarily be a one size fits all for every single person. If some people have been through some serious situations, I don't know if this is the best solution. You might need professional help. But yeah, I got off on a bit of a tangent there, but just do that. Just remember every time, just remind yourself every time you have some sort of guilt or some regret, some shame about you made this one mistake. Maybe you made just this one mistake and now this person is gone, or you made this one mistake and now you don't have this certain job that you wanted, or you lost this thing, you lost this friend. I do recommend fixing the things that you might have the potential to, but if you can't, if that's not an option, if this thing is so long in the past and it just still bothers you, is to just remind yourself, sort of like a mantra, I did what I thought was the best thing in that situation for myself and for other people. And even if you didn't realize it at the time, maybe you did something that was very stupid, or so you think. But even in that moment, it's okay. You made a mistake. You don't have to beat yourself up. It's all right. You could let it go. You could let the past go. You can make that decision right now to completely just let the past go if you truly want to. And remind yourself of that every time. I did what I can in that moment. I did what I thought was best in that moment. And now I'm just going to put this behind me and I'm going to let it go.